I'm curious, just kind of a broad question. What are some of the challenges that you see in marketing your brand or cannabis brands in general these days, and how are you working to solve them?
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest hurdle that we have to cross as a marketing agency is there's a huge limitation on advertising. There's a huge limitation on the type of verbiage that you can use when marketing your product or brand in general. We have to basically formulate a customized solution for each client, depending on if they're a brand, a dispensary, an ancillary company, a service provider of some sort. And yeah, it's really interesting because not on top of having to navigate the boundaries of social media, which is a huge platform for cannabis brands, and Google and ranking on Google. We have to be careful of each state too, because each state has its own particular laws associated with the type of verbiage that you can put out there and the type of content that you can put out there. Just off the top of my head, let's bring up, and I'm looking at my deodorant here on my desk. So let's bring up a deodorant company. Typically a deodorant company, of course, has their foundational marketing aspects, but to get those conversions on those online sales and to create that brand awareness that any normal company would look for, they're running, social media advertisements that are targeted towards a particular demographic. They're doing pay-per-click campaigns on Google that are targeted toward a particular demographic. They're doing, geo-targeted, geo-fenced, advertising efforts, all of which you can't do currently in the cannabis community. Hemp, on the other hand, because it's federally legalized, and those platforms I mentioned, Facebook, Google, there is some tricks of the trade, and they're starting to let the floodgates open in regards to targeted advertising. But it's way more complicated than just putting up a normal product or having a normal storefront. You also can't, people love to use cannabis. As I mentioned earlier, I pretty sure I became so in love with it because it helped me focus, which is weird, because some people it does, and everyone, it reacts to everyone differently. Yeah, so you can't make health claims when you're posting or informing people about this plant that helps so many people, and you also can't post, you can't put pricing up on your Facebook page and saying that you're offering these types of discounts. So every single way that you normally be able to attract someone in very easily is the complete opposite for the cannabis industry.
Yes, so, absolutely. Yeah, John, I completely empathize as somebody who's walked into these same bear traps over and over again. For the audience at home, to get even more specific on your point on social media, John, it's to the point where even, let's say you launch your Instagram account for your brand, there are strong regulations for what you can even show in terms of somebody consuming a product. And the ban hammer comes down, and it's not equitable, it's not judicious in how it comes down. So there are so many tactics that will cause your account to get locked up, to get banned. There's so many pitfalls that it's almost easier to just be kind of consumption agnostic on some of your platforms when it seems so antithetical to promoting your business. Is that similar to your experience, John?
Yeah, totally. You have to be very creative, and that's, it's kind of like circling back to my first kind of, when I first spoke, every single brand and every single business, I think, in the industry is so unique. And, Ben was saying oh, my story is not as inspirational as yours, but it's not the case. It's what's so beautiful about cannabis is that every single person who consumes the plant or is in the industry or just uses cannabinoids in general has this different relationship with it, and it impacts them differently. So we truly try to find that particular reason and passion for each client, and that's actually how we conquer these battles. And of course, we're very, very grateful for organizations that you've been a part of, like Weedmaps and High Times, because they can kind of help leverage clients in particular situations through certain programs that are offered through there. But yeah, we really try to find like what distinguishes the client from all the rest of the businesses in this crazy space. And, you know, kind of touching back to my Cannabis Doing Good program, one critical reason and one critical point that we bring to clients is that giving back, being a member of the community, being environmentally savvy, practicing, you know, social justice and promoting these types of things is really what can help your brand and produce that content that resonates with the audience in the way that you really want it to.
One question, even just following up on to your point on social justice, the legal cannabis movement was born out of a social justice issue. The gay rights movement and the work of Perone and Brownie Mary, everybody that kind of came up through the ranks.
Yeah, and not to mention something else I realized. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to toss it to you of like, can you speak to with it being so intrinsically linked with cannabis companies, it's almost assumed that if you own a brand, you are supportive of social justice causes, and it's almost a matter of you're picking which ones to support, not a matter of if, as opposed to other industries, maybe tech that seems to be catching up and trying to play like the moral card. Cannabis comes through it altruistically. I was kind of wondering in terms of how important was it to you to infuse your business when you were starting your brand with kind of championing causes?
I think that was the most important thing. I think that like, and I think that that's the case for a lot of other organizations in the industry too. There's so much good that comes from this plant. It's absolutely blows my mind, the different facets and different channels that this plant can help people, from mentally health, help the community, how much money we've donated to the community. And yes, and it does you stem back to social injustice, which is crazy. So at a time like now, I almost feel that being part of the cannabis community, at least personally, I feel obligated to create a platform and make a difference right now. And I hope that everyone else in the cannabis community feels the same way. And if they don't, and if they're scared or they don't know what to do, people like me and people like my organization, Cannabis Doing Good, we're here to help. Any questions or any resources that anyone needs, we have that platform. And right now, as we speak, and this entire day, that's all I've been working on. I wanted to like come into this panel like not on fire and like not have a crazy work day, but I couldn't help it. I've basically, like, our strategy is we've directed all of our clients and all of our personal and the PufCreativ social media to our Cannabis Doing Good page. We are in communication with activists throughout the entire country who are advising us on the content that we're putting out and sharing onto our major social media platforms at the moment. So yeah, I hope that answers the question, but that's kind of the route that we're taking right now. And to piggyback on the social injustice and the past of cannabis and how cannabis prohibition even started. I mean, even just not even that long ago, the drug war is how our police were mobilized with all this crazy gear and all, so it's so deep. So anyone who is in the cannabis industry or not and needs a resource at this moment in time, I'm more than happy to be that resource.